Here we are in Tsama Nafshi, Daf Lamed Aleph, I believe. Second Beitsa. And we have been dealing with, not completely finished with, I don't think, the inyan of gathering wood on Yom Tov. Not so much from a derisa point of view. That seems to be assumed that it's permissible. The only question is from a muksa point of view. And as we've seen in the past, the more that we can assume someone was thinking about it in advance, the more we're prone to say there's no problem with the muksa aspect. If it's something we don't think he really thought about using this beforehand, then it's very likely to be muksa, at least according to Rabbi Yehuda. So we had two major scenarios. Wood that's within an enclosure, like a fenced-in area, and wood that's in an open field. So we said, if it's wood that's in an enclosure, our Mishnah presents it as being a slam dunk, as they call it, that you could gather it up on Yom Tov. Whereas if it's in an open field, the Mishnah says clearly you can't gather it up. It's only if it's already in a pile in the field. And Rashi explained, what do you gain that it was in a pile, is that we assume somebody came the day before and piled it up. So what it really is, what we've always called in the past, hachana. Someone prepared this wood, so then he certainly thought about using it on Yom Tov, and therefore it's not muksa. Whereas in an enclosed area, there's some kind of an assumption that he's already thinking about coming and getting, so to speak, his own wood that's in his own enclosure, and therefore we don't necessarily need it to be piled up beforehand. However, when we got to the Gemora, we saw that's not so simple either, that even in the Gemora, it was clear that there's an opinion. In fact, Shmuel holds that way, la halacha, and obviously there's somebody in the Tanoim who holds that way, or Shmuel couldn't just come up with it on his own. The Gemora says he's holding like the Rabbim, and there's only a Yachid who holds like our Mishnah. But he's saying even if it's in an enclosure, you still have to have it piled it up from beforehand, gathered it up beforehand. Why? Again, because the fact that it's an enclosure doesn't help enough. You still need to be prepared from the day before, according to this opinion, according to Shmuel. So, our Mishnah, however, made it clear that as long as it's in an enclosure, it doesn't have to be gathered up the day before. So, our Gemora, before it clarified who was the author of our Mishnah, who's not the author of our Mishnah, and that gave rise to Shmuel paskening not like our Mishnah. But the Gemara afterwards said, nonetheless, we'd still like to understand our Mishnah, because our Mishnah had another factor, which we know is a more of a subtle detail within this idea that an enclosure helps. You have Rabbi Yehuda versus Rabbi Yossi in the Mishnah. Well, what kind of an enclosure helps? Which type of an enclosure do you need in order to say that it doesn't have to have been piled up from the day before? It's enough just to go in and gather it up on Yom Tov. According to Rabbi Yehuda, that's only if it's right adjacent to the city, samuch la'ir. And if it's farther away, he won't let you gather it up on Yom Tov. Only if it was already properly gathered up, then you can take it home. But according to Rabbi Yossi, that's not really true, even if it's much farther away, as long as it's, in the end of the day, it's within the Tchum of Shabbos, which is anyways necessary, because if you go outside the Tchum Shabbos, you can't even walk out there, let alone carry things in and out. So it definitely has to be within the Tchum of Shabbos, but is that enough to have an enclosure within Tchum Shabbos? So even Rabbi Yossi says no, it has to be that it's type of an enclosure that gets locked up and it has a key, so then it's something much more under your control, and therefore if it's so in control, then we don't need to have you pile it up beforehand. It's enough just to have it scattered around. So there's a machlokes between the two parties in that case. What if it's farther away, but it has this under lock and key? Would that be a proper preparation for this wood? You don't need to have it piled up from beforehand, or it's not? According to Rabbi Yehuda, it's not. Unless it's next to the city, it's not good. You have to have piled it up from beforehand. And according to Rabbi Yossi, no, that is enough. It's enough to have this type of preparation. Okay, so we had worked on some of the Rashis to discuss this concept. Principally, the last when we brought it, Gemora tried to bring a proof from the wording of our Mishnah. That's, I think, we're up to yesterday. We said the very wording of our Mishnah can prove within Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Yehuda a certain point. Do they both require only one element? Rabbi Yehuda requires next to the city, but he doesn't care about it being locked up. And Rabbi Yossi requires it being locked up, but doesn't care whether it's next to the city. Is that how we learn them? Or do we say, no, even Rabbi Yossi, he would agree that if it's next to the city, it doesn't need to be locked up. If it's farther away, that's when he talks about it being locked up. So which is the way to read our Mishnah? That's what we ended up being perplexed by. And the Gemara tried to bring a proof from the wording of the Mishnah, because Rabbi Yossi says, first of all, it's enough if it has a lock, it has a patachas, and once you have that, it's enough, because we say within the Tikkun of Shabbos is good enough. So Rashi explained that the diuk of the Gemora was that when Rabbi Yossi is coming to argue with Rabbi Yehuda, if the main point that he wants to say is that it needs to be locked up, then he should have just said that. Why add on even it's also good with anywhere within the Tikkun of Shabbos. Why did he add those words? That's how Rashi presented it. And the way we understood it yesterday was that if he's coming to argue with the general concept of whether you need it to be locked or not, and Rabbi Yehuda said it doesn't need to be locked, it just needs to be adjacent, and he's coming along to say, no, it needs to be locked, even if it's adjacent, then that's what he should talk about. Why go on to talk about even within the Tikkun of Shabbos? Why talk about a case that's much farther away than Rabbi Yehuda had been talking about? So we use that as a proof that he's really arguing with two different cases. First of all, it's true what we said before, that according to Rabbi Yehuda, if when you went ahead and if you have it next to the city and it doesn't have to be locked, Rabbi Yossi could have come along and just said it does need to be locked. So what was he really saying then by adding the extra case? It seems that he's agreeing with Rabbi Yehuda that if it's next to the city, you don't need it to be locked. But he's just adding, but if it's farther away, it could still be good, but then it needs to be locked. That's how Rashi presented it yesterday. Okay. So we could review the Rashi we learned yesterday. I think we stopped in the middle of that Rashi.
Yeah, we did.
We could finish the try to finish the Rashi. We still need to finish the Gemora. Besides, we skipped a few long Rashis beforehand. We could go back and cover those if we're brave. Okay, just a minute. Okay, do you
Hey, have a look at the menu first before you decide what to do. It's Dakar, it's
You wouldn't duck out?
no.
Alright, in the meantime, let's...
Any Rashi? Because I have to put on my Rashi glasses for this.
Yes, once you put on your Rashi glasses, let's try the Rashi. So do you want to start from where we stopped off?
Yeah, I think so. I think the Kavan. So the line begins with Patach. And the next line begins with Rachok. The second word is the Kavan. You see it?
Not exactly.
4, 5, 6 lines from the bottom.
6 lines from what?
From the Mishnah. Rashi.
For the Mishnah?
The Rashi Mishnah.
Elahachi Havale Lamemar.
No.
Before that, after that?
You see the word Rachok?
That is the first word in the line?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, it's one line above this.
Okay.
That's where we end.
Okay, Tekiva, yeah.
Kivan Vahaya, it's a night call Haba. So since that we learned, it was?
I think one of these words he's quoting the Mishnah, and the others he's talking about it. So you try to figure that one out.
Since we learned. I'm not sure.
Well, you just said a few words. One of them is the word from the Mishnah. Which one do you think it is? Just repeat what you just said, and then look at each word in the Mishnah.
The Kevin, Hava, Tanai call Hava.
Okay, now do you find any of those words in the Mishnah? Is the word kivan in the Mishnah? It's only 4 lines of Mishnah, so it shouldn't be that hard to track down. Just take your finger and run your finger over every word in the Mishnah. You find the word kivan. You don't have to say over the whole Mishnah. Just look for these words. Kivan is there? Yes or no? No, then it's not. Next word. The Hava. Do you think that's going to be in a Mishnah? The word Hava, which language is it?
That's Aramaic.
Would it be in a Mishnah then?
No, that's
not likely.
No.
Next word, Tani. Tani means we learn, so that's not going to be in the Mishnah. Kol, is that in the Mishnah?
Yes.
Okay, so that's a candidate.
It's in the Mishnah twice.
Where is it twice?
Kafei kol shesamoch le'ir, and the next line is kol shenich nasim.
Okay, well the first word, karpef, by the way, is part of a larger expression, ezehu karpef.
Right.
What is the karpef that we're talking about? That's going to help you, and you won't have to have it stacked up from beforehand. The answer is kol this or kol that. Each rabbi says a different kol. Any case that's this, or the other one says no, any case that's this. Right?
Okay,
So could be that be the word that Rosh is alluding to here?
Possibly.
Okay. Now, right after that is the word hava again. Now, again, is hava Hebrew or Aramaic?
That was Aramaic.
So do you think that's part of the word that he's quoting from the Mishnah?
No.
So far we've had
Cool.
the word kol. So let's assume that that's the word that Rashi's focusing on. So read the sentence again with that in mind.
Okay, then the Hava, then we call Hava.
Now, why would you say kol hava?
Since we learned call, since we learned the word call,
Okay, so you want to put the comma after kol.
right?
So you don't want to keep putting the word hava together.
Oh, I
with
see what you're saying here. Since we learned the word call, okay, wow, okay.
that. Now, normally in a sentence when you say since, let's try a few examples in English. Since I got hungry, therefore I decided to eat. Since I needed to get to the wedding hall, therefore I got on a bus. Most sentences that start with the word since, in the middle will have the word therefore. Right?
Right.
But you don't have to say the word therefore. It can be implied. Since I wanted to get to the wedding hall, I got on the bus. You don't have to say the word therefore, but it has to be implied. And for the proper understanding, you really should say the word. Ezrat Hashem. כולנו נלמד ונצליח. כל טוב, בהצלחה.
Bye-bye. But since we learned call,
Right.
okay,
Therefore,
Hava Mishma, Beitsa.
Hava Mashma,
So we hear,
it was understood.
understood,
Mashma means, yes, from what you hear is what you understand.
right,
So it means it was understood, it was implied, it was understood.
that Tzarich Potachat Samuch, that we need the key,
You need a case of lock and key.
Samuch or Rachok. If it, whether the parish is close or far from the city.
That's, in other words, the important thing is we need it to be locked up, regardless of whether it's close or far away.
I'm still not sure why the word call is important.
Just think of the implication of the word coal. If I say the word coal
Yeah,
in my definition,
yeah.
that means I want you to know that any case that resembles this will be good.
Okay.
Now, that word coal is coming to include something. Without the word coal, you would have just said maybe it's a specific thing. There's a specific case that has a lock that he's going to say is good.
How would you say this in English? Since?
In the Rashi sentence or the
Rashi.
Mishnah?
The Rashi sentence.
Rashi says, since he chose to learn the word coal, since he chose that as part of his message, as part of his definition, the Mishnah asks, which kind of carpet is going to allow you to gather the wood that was scattered? So, Ezu carpet, which carpet is so gifted that it can let you do that? Rav Yehuda said one thing. Rav Yossi says, you know what it is? It's any situation that has a key, as a lock and key. That's the carpet I will let you gather wood on. Which implies that it doesn't matter where it is, samuch, not samuch, wherever it is. I gave you the definition. You want to know which carpet is the one that, the special one that you can just go in and collect wood?
You could substitute the word both. The word both.
Both where?
Since we learned the word both.
Both? Where's the word both?
No, I'm saying you could substitute the word both
What?
for call. You could say that it's
Kol means any situation that has the following factor. It doesn't matter to me what the other factors are, because I'm specifying the factor that I need. any situation that has this factor will be okay. It's like saying anyone who's carrying an American passport will get in the door. Right? So that means I don't care what if you're a black American, a Chinese American, an expatriate from Australia. I don't care. I already made my statement. Anyone who has a passport will get in the door. Included in that is no matter what you look like, no matter who you are, no matter what your background is. You have a passport, you'll get in the door. The word kol does that. Just in general, it does that. And in Rashi might also mean in Gemora learning. The word kol has even more significance, by the way.
Yeah.
Because the Gemora almost always says that a statement that is with the word kol very often could be said equally as well without the word kol. So just like in the Torah,
Kol.
again, just like in the Torah, how do I know there's an extra word? Because I proved to you that you could do without that word. Rashi will often do that. He'll show you the sentence could have read one way, even without the word that we're talking about, but the Torah chose to put that word in. If the Torah chose to put in a word that we could have done without, that makes it extra, by definition. And that means I can darshan it, I can get extra halachas out of that word. I can squeeze that word out and get extra halachas. Right? Just like I'm used to hearing that concept in the Torah, the Gemara sometimes applies that even to a Mishnah. As if to say, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, when he wrote the Mishnayos, he knew the same kind of economics as Hashem, that you should try to be as terse with your language as possible. And if you put in a word that didn't need to be said, then it maybe wanted to teach me an extra halacha. So for example, the word kol. Gemara says often, if I ask you, what do you need? And you say, I need it to be with a lock and key. Then I don't need to say the word kol. Which karpef is good? The one that has a lock and key. I don't need to say the word kol. Once I say, no, I want you to know my idea, that any situation that has a lock and key is good. It's like you're advertising, but you're bringing something extra in. Because without the word kol, I would have the same message. You ask me which kind of karpef is good, which kind of karpef will allow me to gather in the wood without having it piled up the day before, I could have answered just by saying, the one that has a lock and key. That answers your question, doesn't it? But the word kol is extra. It's like saying, no, you know what? Any situation, even the ones that are on the borderline that you weren't sure if they would work, I'm telling you they work as long as they have a lock and key. Kol. To alert you that even the borderline cases are going to be good. Even all those cases. All cases that, even the borderline ones, will be okay. What's a borderline case? A case that has a lock and key, but it's far away. That's a case that Rabbi Yehuda would have been very upset about. And comes along Rabbi Yossi says, no. Kol, the initial posachas, is good. Any enclosure that has a key, that works with lock and key, is good.
Like he says, Shemoch or Rachok.
That's right. So it could be just because the way that the word kol works, that's what you're saying. When you say kol, you're saying any case. Any case means it doesn't matter to me any other factor where it is next to the city, not next to the city. So that itself is probably sufficient to learn from the word kol that he allows any type of enclosure that has a lock and key, even if it's far away. But I'm adding a little bit of extra schmaltz to it by saying not only that, but the word kol, which happens to be the word we're talking about here, is often a word that Chazal will latch onto and say, why did it use the word kol? As if it's understood that it didn't have to say kol, it could have gotten the same idea across without the word kol. So it's not just here, Rashi's saying it in our Gemora, but Rashi's capitalizing on a expression, or a Gemora concept, which is in many, many Gemoras, that the word kol is extra in the Mishnah and must be there to teach me an extra lesson.
So, if he hadn't used the word kol, it is eze karfe shesamuch le'ir.
Eze karpef is the question,
Eze karfe.
and then he could have answered, Rabbi Huda could have answered as well as Rabbi Yossi, Samach le'ir. You need the word kol. So the truth is, even in Rabbi Huda, there's an extra word kol. Although we seem to be ignoring that. I don't know what we learned from that, but we definitely are capitalizing on the kol that's attached to the word Rabbi Yossi's definition. Now, the question would be, if you're going to learn from the kol of Rabbi Yossi, why don't you learn from the kol of Rabbi Huda? Maybe we do. Maybe Rashi will say we do, or maybe we'll just have to think of it on our own. But right now we're just trying to figure out what Rashi is saying, not why he didn't say something else. So let's try to just go through that. So we understood the sentence that he's saying now, that since it used the word kol, that alerts me that it could have just said the sentence without the word kol. But there's an extra case here, which he's trying to okay. And what case would that be? The case that Rabbi Huda would argue with, which would mean it's locked, but it's far away from the city. In any event. Okay, let's go back to the Rashi then.
So he carries on. Not only the sign. Why should I finish?
So just a second. So that's the first thing he wants to get across. The word kol teaches us what he holds. So once I have kol, I already know what Rabbi Yossi holds. What does he hold? If it has a posachas, then even if it's far from the city, it's okay. So now Rashi's saying step 2 is I have to ask myself the question then. If I already know that he allows, from just from the word kol, I know he allows any enclosure, no matter how far away it is, as long as it has a lock and key. So lama li, so then why do I need, or why did he need really, why do I need, it's like saying why did he need to teach me the last part of the phrase, which was siyam, that he ended off his sentence with Shabbos.
Okay. So
now,
this
it can't be that he was really trying to teach me that it needs to be within the Tikkun, because Rashi already said that in Rabbi Yehuda. Everybody agrees it has to be within the Tikkun. The field that we talked about in the beginning had to be within the Tikkun. Everything has to be within, no such thing as going out and getting wood from outside the Tikkun. You can't even walk outside the Tikkun. Forget about bringing stuff in. So, is that really what Rabbi Yossi is trying to add with those extra words, just to remind you that the field that we're happen to be talking about has to be within the Tikkun? No, I knew that already. I knew at the beginning of the Mishnah, Rashi told me that if it's letting me bring wood in from a field that's already been piled up beforehand, it's only if it's within the Tikkun. That's a given. So I already know from the word kol, Rabbi Yossi is matir a field that's enclosed, that's far away, as long as it has a lock and key. Then why tell me it has to be within the Tikkun? Do you really think I don't know it has to be within the Tikkun? Of course I know it has to be within the Tikkun. Even the field that we talked about in the Mishnah has to be within the Tikkun. So why is he saying that? That's what Gemora, according to Rashi, those are the words that we were really focusing on. That's extra. That's completely extra now. Those 4 words are completely extra. So what are they teaching me? Ella, rather, you know what it's coming to teach you?
The law boye patachat. Ele lemishrei shahen samoch. Rather, we can understand the Mishnah.
Understand the Mishnah? What do you mean?
Le'ashma'inas,
it means to make us hear. To make us hear means to teach us. He was trying to teach us a lesson. To make us hear a certain halacha. There's like saying you want to teach me that halacha. What's the extra thing is teaching me then?
That we don't need a key.
That we really don't need a key, what?
Rather,
Meaning we only need a
well,
key.
we only need a key, right? We need a Ray for permission, or what is it?
In order to permit.
She'ein samuch. To enter an enclosure which is not close.
To enter in? No. Where do you get the enter in?
She'ein samuch. That it's not close.
Okay, so we're trying to permit an enclosure.
Which is not
Permitting it means you're permitting me to go in there and collect the wood that was mefuzar. When we're talking about permitting here, the subject is always, can you go in there and collect the wood? So that's what I was saying, to permit that, collecting the wood. Even if it's not piled up, even if it's already still scattered. So again, Lashmoinan, the Mishnah is trying to teach me with these last 4 words that what? Ella. Right.
Rather, we get permission
to permit. The Mishnah is coming to permit something.
That we may collect the wood even from a place which is not next to the river.
That's right. So that means that Rabbi Yossi's main point, when he told me that it needs to be locked up, Rashi just said we only need to hear that in order to permit us in a field that's far away. Which implies that what? If it was close to the city,
you don't need a lock.
Not need it to be under lock and key. So Rashi just did a 2-step diuk in Rabbi Yossi, from which we were able to deduce that he's not really arguing with Rabbi Yehuda in the case of where it's samach le'ir. When it's samach to the city, just like Rabbi Yehuda will let you take out of that enclosure scattered wood on Yom Tov, even without a lock and key. It turns out now that we know what, even Rabbi Yossi will allow that. Because Rashi just told me that we can now deduce from the last 4 words of the Mishnah that as long as it's within the Tchum of the city, those words were unnecessary and they were only there to teach me that when is he really coming to tell you need a lock and key when it's far away. That if it would be close, you wouldn't need it, which means he's really agreeing with Rabbi Yehuda that if it's close, you don't need a lock and key. So now Rabbi Yossi is more in line with what we've talked about before. So if we go back and look, which we'll have to do, to look at the original question, now we're seeing how the Gemora is siding with one of the 2 perspectives. That in the question we presented 2 different perspectives on the Mishnah. Either they're arguing about one perspective, where let's say they're arguing about 2 separate things, or they're arguing about another perspective where they're only really arguing about one thing. Right? When we go back to the question, we're going to see these 2 things were offered to us. We could either learn the Mishnah in one way, in which they're arguing about two things, or we can learn the Mishnah slightly differently. They're only arguing about one thing. If you remember what I said yesterday, is that normally we prefer to say Tanaim are only arguing about one thing. That's the more professional way to approach a machlokas. We're not just coming to air out our dirty laundry. I argue with you on 100 things, you argue with me on 100 things. That's very unprofessional. What's professional is we're talking about one specific case, and you say, that case is good, and I say that case is bad. Therefore, we see that's our argument. That particular case, whether you need one particular factor or not. But if you say that we're arguing about two things, it's sloppy. It's a little bit sloppy. It's unprofessional. It's also unorthodox. It's like not the normal way for Tanaim to argue. But yet, it seemed to be better with the words. The words seem to indicate that. So now, ironically, we've used the same words that we were thinking before indicated one thing. We're now saying, no, if you really think about those words, the word kol, for example, got us to a certain point. And then, in addition to that, we went to the last part of what he said, which was completely extra, even if it's within the Tehum. And we added that all together. We got this interesting point where we ended up saying, really, they're only arguing about one thing. We can get back to saying that even the words of the Mishnah tell you they only argue about one thing. So originally we thought if you follow the words, you're going to end up with them arguing about two things, which is unprofessional, but you might have to do that. And if you say they're arguing about one thing, you kind of have to ignore the words. Now, Baruch Hashem, the way the Gemora explained it, the way Rashi explained the Gemora, we got it into the words what we had hoped would happen. That they're actually arguing about one particular thing, and it is Meduik in the words. So we worked with the words, and we got what we were hoping for. That they're only arguing about one thing, which is the norm as well. So that's very good. That's a great scenario. But all we really did was focus on the words of Rabbi Yossi. And according to Rashi, when we were focusing on Rabbi Yossi's words, two major things came to light. The word kol is extra. And then the last phrase that he used was also extra. The phrase that even if, as long as it's in the Tehum of Shabbos, it's mutter, that bothered us because that's also seemingly extra. So Rashi explained that that's the pshat in the Gemora, that we said, from those words of Rabbi Yossi, we now know what Rabbi Yossi holds, correct? So now we have to work our way back to Rabbi Yehuda, and then that'll be a complete understanding of our Mishnah. Let's use this to work backwards now to Rabbi Yehuda. If that's what Rabbi Yossi holds, then what must Rabbi Yehuda hold? And we can start to go through that. That's the next part of Rashi.
Okay. The Rabbi Yehuda, the law boy charti meaning. So Rabbi Yehuda doesn't need two.
He doesn't need two factors.
Two factors. Okay. Nami Maresha.
Also, from the Reisha, which Reisha? The
Rabbi
Yossi, of the Reisha of Rabbi Yossi. We can hear from it, right? In other words, we can use Rabbi Yossi's words to reveal a little bit about Rabbi Yehuda as well. Now, what would it mean if Rabbi Yehuda required two things, I think, what he means? Right?
Yeah, he needs to be close to the city and he needs it to be locked up.
Good. Because that was part of the question. He only mentioned Tsama to the city, but he didn't mention closed up or locked up, but maybe it was just understood. So we're saying no. I can infer now that that as well is true, that he doesn't require both. He only requires some. How do I get that? Rashi says again, from the beginning of Rabbi Yossi's words, I can deduce that. And it's going to sound very similar to what we said before. That what? What's the actual diuk from Rabbi Yossi's words that's going to help us understand Rabbi Yehuda? Because Rashi says...
Mida nikat niket? Know what that is?
Nakat. Like a regular verb. Laman, amar, nakat. Past tense verb, right?
I've seen it before.
Nakat means he mentioned or he took. When a Tana takes something, it means he mentioned it. He took it as his example. He took it as his words. Maybe it's even better in English to say he utilized. He utilized certain words or a certain case to get his point across. That's called nakat. He took that as his case. In other words, he utilized that as his case. He utilized those words. So, I mean, you could even just say he used, right? From the fact that he used particular words or a particular case, that's what he chose to use to get his point across. So, officially, that could be what nakat means. He used a particular phrase or a particular case to get his point across, whereas he could have used any word or any other concept. But he didn't. He chose this. He was selective. He was very selective. That tells us something.
He's talking about the tchum.
No, we'll see in a minute. Midinakat, from the fact that he mentioned, from the fact that he took as his case, what?
Kol shenichnasin lo bepatach.
That's an entire quote. From the fact that he used that expression or that case, that to tell me that he's approving of anything that opens with a key.
Kevan, since the kulahu potachet itlei hachi
Itlehu.
itehu.
So now, remember, there's two options in Rabbi Yehuda. He either needs samuch plus a posachas, or samuch, but he doesn't care about posachas.
Right.
Now, I think he's playing devil's advocate here. Let's say he really needs a posachas. So that's what he's saying. If he really didn't need, Kivan, since let's assume that Kulu, all of them, posachas islahu, right?
All had keys.
All of them have keys. In other words, not only in Rabbi Yehuda he needs a key. We said Rabbi Yossi might also always need a key, right? That was one possibility in Rabbi Yossi also. Yes, he's allowing it farther away, but he always needs a key. But maybe even needs a key when it's adjacent to the city, right? So he's saying like this: if it were really true that he needed a key always, right? That kulu posachas islu, that all of them have to have a posachas to be able to talk about them, to even start to talk about them, and they have to have a posachas. If Rabbi Yossi holds that way, that he's never willing to allow you to use one of these enclosures to gather up the wood, if it doesn't have a posachas, so all of his enclosures always need a posachas for you to be able to talk about gathering up wood. So if that's really true, or since that's really true, in other words, we're entertaining that as a notion, then what? Iboile lemisi. Hachi dasli, meaning the following way. In the following way, iboile, literally he needed. In other words, in English we would say he should have done what?
Teach us.
He should have lemisne, he should have learned, he should have included the words, he should have learned the words, what?
Rabbi Yossi Omer, Afilu batoch tachum Shabbos.
This, I think, Rosh spoke out earlier. He's just repeating himself, I think, now. He's saying like this: if really Rabbi Yehuda needed a posachas, right? He always needs a posachas, but he just didn't talk about it. But he really does need one. But he also needs it to be samuch. If that's what he would really need, and Rabbi Yossi's coming to say, I also always need a posachas, right? Then what should he say? I agree with what you just said, that samuch with a posachas is good. But I want to tell you that no, even if it was anywhere within the tachum with a posachas, it would be good. If that's really true, then all he needed to say was those simple words, afila posachas tachum.
Which he didn't say.
He didn't say that. So which leads us to believe again that Rabbi Yossi is talking to Rabbi Yehuda, who does not need a posachas next to the city. As well, Rabbi Yossi, we said, doesn't need it. So they both don't need a posachas next to the city. So that's why he couldn't just come along and say, oh, even somewhere else within the Techum, as long as it's in the... No, you're not going to say as long as it's within the Techum, because he holds that if it's really going to be far away and just within the Techum, you need a posachas. So when he talked to Rabbi Yehuda, who had just finished saying, if it's next to the city, I'll let you gather the wood there, even if it doesn't have a posachas, he couldn't come along and just say, no, anywhere within the Techum is good, because that would imply anywhere within the Techum is good without a posachas. Just like Rabbi Yehuda is saying, without a posachas, it's okay. It's somewhat clear. So if all he's coming to say is, somewhat clear as opposed to within the Techum, but everyone says you don't need a posachas, then we could have just used those three words. No, even a fila posachas Techum, that we got the point across. What you just said, I say it works anywhere in the Techum, even without a posachas. So he wasn't saying that. You know why he wasn't saying that? Because it's not true. Because really, Rabbi Yehuda himself, if it's next to the city, he doesn't need a posachas.
And anywhere else he does.
But Rabbi Yehuda himself, he does not allow you anywhere else. Only samuch, but once it's samuch, you don't need a posachas. Then to that kind of position, Rabbi Yossi had to say, he couldn't just jump right to anywhere inside the Techum, because that's not true. That means he has to get you to the point where you're talking about with a posachas. So he says, no. First of all, any case that has a posachas is okay. Which means I don't need it for when it's next to the city, but any case other than that will be good, and even no matter where it is in the Techum. So like we said before, now I know Rabbi Yossi as well, that he's saying I only need a posachas when it's far away. When it's next to the city, it doesn't need a posachas. So that he and Rabbi Yehuda are in agreement. So the way that Rabbi Yehuda is talking, and also the way Rabbi Yossi is replying, we pieced it all together. Now we know how they're talking to each other. Rabbi Yossi's coming and saying to Rabbi Yehuda, who just said next to the city without a posachas is okay, he's coming along and saying any case that has a posachas is good. Meaning, any case that's far away and has a posachas will still be good. And that's what he's saying at the end. He's saying, even if it's within the Techum, meaning that's the kind of case I'm talking about that needs posachas. Only that case. But the case that's next to the city doesn't need a posachas. So therefore we were able to use Rabbi Yossi to get back to Rabbi Yehuda. Either way, the conversation makes sense now. And all the words make sense. The word kol, which we used before to be medayik, and the fact that he's adding the words of anything that's within the Techum. We said those are also significant words, and that gets us back to Rabbi Yehuda as well, because Rabbi Yossi is talking to a Rabbi Yehuda. Well, if he's talking to a Rabbi Yehuda, it has to make sense. And if Rabbi Yehuda just finished saying you need a posachas under all circumstances, even if it's next to the city, then Rabbi Yossi should have replied to that. Yes, you need a posachas, but you need a posachas anywhere, and anywhere it will help. So you should have just jumped right away to the Pesachah Techum.
It's very comprehensive.
It's very clear.
It's clearer. I have to think about this when I'm off. I'll try to today.
I wouldn't want it any other way. I wouldn't want you not to think about it. Anyways, this Rashi bears repeating. But I think the salient points, at least in the second half that we just learned, I could say over, even though there were a lot of other things that Rashi said, it's all based on the same idea. Could he have said less? Yes. If he was saying a specific thing. But if he said more, it's teaching us that he really holds of more. And it turns out, if you put all of that together, the word kol, and the extra word Pesachah Techum, and also the very fact that he didn't just say Soch Techum to Rabbi Yehuda. Put all that together, according to Rashi, we end up with Rabbi Yehuda came along and said, as long as it's somewhere to the ear, I'm happy. And he doesn't need posachas. Came along Rabbi Yossi and said, you know what, I agree with you, the case of somewhat to the ear without a posachas is good, but I want you to know that any case that does have a posachas would be good also far away. Therefore, all they're really arguing about is that one particular case. They're not arguing about two things anymore, only one thing. Everybody agrees that if it's next to the city, even without a posachas, it's good.
But if it's away, you need a key.
But Rabbi Yossi says if it's away, you need a key, but a key at least helps. Rabbi Huda says it doesn't even help you.
Where does he say it doesn't help you?
Who?
Rabbi Yehuda.
Rabbi Huda said, when the Mishnah asked which carpet is going to help, right? Which is the carpet means which carpet is going to help you to collect wood without it being piled up.
Right.
What did Rabbi Huda answer? If it's next to the city.
Right.
Okay. That's what he holds. It has to be next to the city. He said it clearly.
Right.
But as long as it's next to the city, he does not require there to be a posachas, we said.
So I was saying that he's meaning also that the ones that are distant, they don't have a key, you cannot take them.
Right. Because by him, the only thing that really matters is where it is, if it's somewhat to the city. Anything farther away, there's nothing that can help it. Unless you pile it up from beforehand. Pile it up beforehand, then everyone agrees it's okay. The only question was, if you don't pile it up from beforehand, and we're trying to figure out what did you think of before Yom Tov started, something that could allow muksa or not, his position is no. If it's too far away, even with a lock and key, it doesn't matter. It's kind of like the case we had before. It's stored away, like an otzer, but it's far away from me. Not something I really thought to use. That's what Rabbi Yehuda thinks. It's actually very much in line with things we've said about Rabbi Yehuda in the past few pages.
Yeah.
The chiddush of Rabbi Yossi is that no, but if it's under lock and key, somehow or other, even though it's far away,
Shows intention. Kind of.
yeah, we assume he had the intention. Meaning anything you have under lock and key, maybe that shows you that you care about it more than anything else. So therefore, somehow that shows that you want to use it, whether you wanted to use it this particular Yom Tov or you were willing to wait for another time, perhaps that's true. But he feels that there's enough of your mind on this to let you use it. It almost sounds like Rabbi Shimon. It's something you could use, it's something that is good for Yom Tov, and something you knew would still be there because it's under lock and key. Therefore, we'll let you use it. But I would venture to say that even this Rabbi Yossi must still be going according to Shitas Rabbi Yehuda and Muksa, that normally he wouldn't let you use something unless there's something special about it that gives us more of an assurance that you were thinking about it. For some reason, he feels if it's under lock and key, and you know it'll be there, there's no question it'll be there. It's kind of like that question of the leaves, right? That Rava said, if you put it, even if you piled it up, but you're not really sure it'll be there tomorrow. Even if it happens to be there tomorrow, it's not going to help you because in your mind, you knew it may not be there tomorrow. So we don't think you really relied on it. But if it's under lock and key, he would say, you know it's going to be there tomorrow. And it's something that it's usable. And you put all those factors together, he says you can be lenient. But Rabbi Yehuda himself, Mr. Muksa himself, no. It has to be somewhat to the city, you have to be close by to think that you had your mind on it. Out of sight, out of mind.
Key or no key.
Right. Maybe the pshat is, if it's somewhat to the city and people are kind of keeping an eye on it, it's not way out in the boondocks. So it's next to people's houses. Maybe your house isn't necessarily there, but other people are there. People are keeping an eye on it, so therefore, it's like someone once said, I don't know if it's so true, that in, let's say, Telstone, we live right next to the gate where the shomer sits. Truth is, if a thief, chas v'shalom, was industrious enough, he could probably get into our house even with the shomer like 20 feet away. Just angle himself this way and that way, wait for the shomer to look this way, that way. But the reality is that most thieves, they think someone's right there who might see us at any moment. Let's go somewhere else where it's safer. It's a safer bet to steal from a place that's farther away from the shomer. So in a sense, if it's next to the city, perhaps that's the pshat, that it's close enough to the city that somebody's bound to see it if we go into that enclosure and try to take, even without the key. So therefore, the thieves tend to shy away from that. And therefore, I can count on it being there tomorrow. And I'm not going to suppose that the guy didn't think it would be there tomorrow. But you see, since the Gemora wasn't sure if that's true, the Gemora thought maybe he would need a key, that you could hear that that's not so simple. It's not a simple idea. We could hear it either way. Therefore, we tried to find the answer within the words of the Mishnah. That was a much safer bet. If we find something implied in the words of the Mishnah, then we could easily say Rabbi Yehuda holds a certain, he either does or doesn't need the posachas. But just on our own, with just logic, pure logic, we could hear it either way. Could be he needs the posachas, even close by, because at the end of the day, if a thief is really determined, he can take it even when it's close by. But the reality is, I guess according to the way we're saying now, at the end of the day, that we allow you to take out the wood, the scattered wood there, even without a posachas, it must be because the fact that it's somewhat to the ear, in people's minds, that's good enough. It's kind of like an insurance policy. But the Gemara made it clear, it's only because we found it implied in the words, and thank God Rashi spent a lot of time here trying to clue us in on how all the little twists and turns in the words of the Mishnah, and also really the words of the Gemara, because even when you and I read the Gemara, we weren't sure what the Gemara was saying. Just by quoting Rabbi Yossi, we hoped to prove something. Well, what's the proof? We already said you could read Rabbi Yossi two ways. So according to Rashi, no, that's what the Gemara is doing. It's re-quoting Rabbi Yossi and telling you, if you really analyze his words closely, why is the word kol there? Why is the field b'sachat tchum there? You can really start to piece things together. That seems to be how Rashi was working, but that's the second half of Rashi. And probably the best thing is to read the whole Rashi again, see how it all fits in, all the pieces of this Rashi. But in the meantime, if you want, we can try to finish the Gemora, but I'm just going to step out for a minute.
In the sense of saying Amar Rav Sarah, Amar Rabbi, Yirmiyah, Halacha ke Rabbi Yossi lehakal. So Rosh Sarah. Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah, that the halacha is like Rabbi Yosef regarding
Yossi.
the leniency.
There's another Yosef, but that's an Amor.
No,
this is Yossi.
Sorry, Yosef. Lakel.
Lahakel, to be makel.
Right.
So I don't know if that means a different way of understanding Rabbi Yossi than we just said, but one thing's coming out very interestingly to me is that it seems like we're saying the halacha is like Rabbi Yossi and like our Mishnah, which to me is a chiddush, because I thought the halacha was like Shmuel, who said the halacha is not like our Mishnah. Remember, Shmuel was saying, no, the Mishnah is a yichidah.
Right.
But basically, Shmuel held you have to have it piled up from beforehand, no matter what, even if it's within an enclosure. Seemingly, if you go like Rabbi Yossi, you're saying no, it can be scattered. It's okay, and it could even be far away, and as long as it has a key, lock and key. So how are we going to put all that together? I thought you just told me no. It has to be piled up even in an enclosure. Now you're saying no, it can be scattered. I don't know. So which one is the halacha? I don't know which is the halacha. In any event, is there any Rashi on this last part?
No, it doesn't seem to be.
So then we'd have to look up the halacha. Here we have a gimel, which means it's in the okay. And then we have before, when we had Rabbi Yossi, a Shmuel, that was, let's see, Siman Taf, Kuf Aleph Gimel, and then we have also Dalid, and then, okay. So let's look it up quickly. We can. I think it's Vav, if I'm not mistaken. Taf, Kuf Aleph, is that what it says?
According to what it's referring to.
Up on the upper left-hand corner, there's the Ein Mishpat.
Okay.
They're supposed to say where all these things are learned. Tav Kuf Aleph. Okay, so that's in Hay, the end of Hay then. Here we go. Tav Kuf Aleph. It says... Okay, maybe tomorrow we'll look at this together. I'll just read it now outside for you to listen. Eitzim Asurim Mutarim B'Yomtiv. Which type of Eitzim are Mutar and Asur and Yomtiv? That's Sim Tav Kuf Aleph in general. Sif Aleph says, Ein Mevakim Eitzim Minakor. So you're not allowed to chop wood. Okay, we didn't discuss that. Only in the Vinyan. If they were for lumber, like lumber that's for building. Lo Makora Shnishbara Yomtiv, not even if it broke on Yomtiv, Afilu in. Okay, this is not what we wanted. Let's see. Further on.
I think it'd probably be further back.
Okay, I think it's really Gimel. I don't know why I listed Aleph here, but okay, yeah, Gimel. Sorry, my mistake. Ein Mivim Eitzim in a Sadeh, not allowed to bring in Eitzim from the field, Afilu Hayu Mechunasim, Sham. Even if in the field it was piled up. Mi be'erev, from Erev Yomtiv. Aval Megabev Hu, Besadeh Shulfanav, or whatever. Madlik Sham. You can also bring it in from whether it was gathered up in a private domain, even if the enclosure was not for living in. It has to have some kind of a border. The Hais Shabbos, of course, it has to be within the Tchum Shabbos. Chiser achas b'kol elu, if it's missing one of these factors, harei hein muksa, then it's considered muksa. Okay, so I guess we'd have to read the Mishnah to see what here was in line with our Gemora. It sounds not like Rabbi Yossi. It doesn't sound like this Rabbi. I don't hear Rabbi Yossi in here. Nothing about a lock. Nothing about that. So I'm not sure how this was supposed to be the halachas like Rabbi Yossi. And yet, somehow this is somehow halacha of Rabbi Yossi. In any event, let's see if there's any Mishnah Berurah on that. No. He says, "Afilu mechunasim sham be'erev." Even if it was gathered up from before, milashon zeh mashma afilu hechinan mi'erev yomtiv asur. In an open field, even if you came erev yomtiv and prepared the mamish, it's still usher, which does boggle the mind, right? Why would that be usher? You like Rashi said in the Mishnah, you prepared it. For Taima Efshar, maybe the reason, you see who says Efshar, you see he's also not sure. You see, there's a huge Shar Tzion here, which means it's a very deep subject. Okay, Esher Mishum Dahavi Uvda Dechol. Wow. He's bringing up something that Rashi didn't mention. I don't know, maybe Rashi does mention some of the Rashis we didn't receive, but
weekday work.
yeah, this goes back to like the old problem. But I mean, this whole sugya seemed to be with muksa, not with this. But he's saying, why? Why in the world would anyone say it's usher? You can't say because of muksa. And he put his mind on it. He came and prepared it. Erev Yom Tov. Must be uvda d'chol. Leilech l'sadid, to go all the way out to a field. Lahavi 8 seemed to bring in wood. I think you might have brought this up at one point. L'beisa yesh mefarshim mishum de michlaf v'mefuzar. Mefuzar usher. This would get mixed up with ones that are too scattered about, and that would be usher. So they shouldn't get mixed up. Mishum de mechsid kemigabe v'sorech machar. Whatever. Looks like you're doing it for tomorrow. Some people say that might be the reason why we don't let you do it from an open field. Wow, that's a big kiddush. I don't see that in Rashi, but there were Rashis we didn't see, so perhaps we have to go back over the whole sugi again with the Rashis. But okay, Sadeh Mishulafanav, Samach L'Makam. We should be there. Okay, we'll have to continue tomorrow. I don't want you to be